Hello, year fours, and welcome back. In the previous lesson, we were brainstorming some ideas of what we could be writing our story about. So before we start our planning and we begin boxing up our ideas properly and then leading to obviously writing our story out, we're going to have a little bit of fun today. And we are going to play with a dice game that gives us different options, and then we have to try and write a story using the options that we roll. So what you need in front of you, please, is a pencil and a piece of paper. If you have access to a dice, please go and get it. If you don't, you can just find an online dice online that you can just click and it should give you a number or you roll one. So if you're able to do that, pause the video now and go and get those things. Now that you've got what I've asked you to go and get, what you're going to do now is the following. You are going to roll your dice and then you are going to choose a character, or you will get the character that you have rolled. So for example, if I roll a number 2, the characters of my story need to be a dog and a cat. Then you're going to roll them again, and you need to choose a setting. And remember, it goes with the number. So if you roll and you get a number 6, you will see that your setting is going to be an old house. Then we will roll it again, and we will choose a moral. And as you can see from the examples, one of those you may recognize from another story that we've discussed. If we roll the number 5, our moral would be slow and steady wins the race. And that is the moral that we learned from the tortoise and the hare. So get your piece of paper and get your pencil, get your piece of paper and your pencil and your dice, or however you're going to do it. And we are going to roll. Okay, so I will do it with you so that I can get a story that I'm going to try and write. Remember that our folk tales should be quite short. They have flat settings, well, they have flat characters. So one of your characters is maybe going to be the trickster. One of them is going to be the good character that you learn your moral from. And your setting could be in any time period. So remember that. So let's get rolling. As you can see, I've got my dice as well, so I'm going to roll it, and then we're going to go and check what my characters are going to be. So I've got 2, I've actually ended up rolling 3 dice, but I'm going to take the blue dice, and it says it's a number 2. So let's go and have a look at what that is. We can see from my rolled number 2 dice that my characters in my story are going to be a dog and a cat. So I have continued rolling my dice, and just like you've seen before, and I've shown you that my original roll was for the characters, and the characters were a dog and a cat. My second roll was a number 4, which meant that my setting is a castle. And my third roll was, where is it gone? It is the number 4 again, and it is the moral of treat people like you want to be treated. So my story that I'm going to write today is a story about a dog and a cat who live in a castle, and the moral, so the story, what I would like the story to teach us when we read it is that we should treat other people like you would like to be treated. Once you've got all that information, I'm going to model how we can turn that into our story. Remember what I said about the fact that one of your characters needs to be a good character and one needs to be either a trickster or someone who is not a very good character. And obviously we need to be able to learn a lesson from how they interact. So I've decided that my cat is going to be my trickster character. He's going to be lazy, lies around a lot, and our dog is going to be the hard-working character that we are hopefully going to learn the moral of our story from. Remember that our stories shouldn't have a time period that we are going by, so we will often start our stories with one day, once upon a time, or long, long ago, just so we know that it isn't now, but we're also not sure when it was. So we're going to start with one day. And that's obviously a fronted adverbial of time, so I'm going to put a comma afterwards. Carrying on, obviously we introduce our characters. So I'm going with the lazy cat and the hardworking dog. So we'll say one day, a lazy cat and his friend the hardworking dog were walking through the castle gardens. Right, so my first sentence is going to say, one day a lazy cat and his friend, the hardworking dog, were walking through the castle gardens. And that's going to be the start of my story. As you can see, I've carried on a little bit so that you don't need to watch me write all of this. So I will read you the rest of the story, and then you can see how I've begun to unfold it. Remembering that I have a beginning, a middle, and end. I have my trickster character, or the character that's quite mean. In this case, I have the lazy cat and the hardworking dog. Those are my two characters. So we've said one day, a lazy cat and his friend, the hardworking dog, were walking through the castle gardens. They decided to have lunch together. So that's going to be my introductory paragraph, introducing the characters, telling you where the setting is, and telling you what they're going to be doing. I've carried on, and I've said, every time the cat ate with the dog, he got embarrassed by how messy the dog was. He would cruelly tell the dog to eat alone away from him. So the cat character, you can already see, is actually an unkind character. And even though they're friends, he's not very nice to his friend. So I've got my beginning, I've got my middle where the problem is with him being unkind. And we know from what we have learnt about folktales that the next bit, the ending bit, is obviously where you learn your lesson. And if we look at the top of my board, I actually have the moral that we're aiming at teaching people from the story, which is treat others the way you would like to be treated. We know now that the last bit of our story is our ending, and then that is where the moral comes into play and where we were able to better understand what we should have been learning from the story. So the end of my story finishes as follows. One day, the lazy cat was lying around enjoying the sun while the hard-working dog picked apples in the castle gardens. A heavy branch fell on the cat's paw, breaking his fingers. When Dog suggested they have lunch later that day, Cat was mortified to realize he too was spilling food everywhere. Rather than make fun of him, Dog was kind to him and gave him a napkin. So you can see that this is where Cat realizes that actually he needs to treat others the way he would like to be treated. So he doesn't want to be treated the same way that he has been treating Dog. He wants to be treated kindly and with respect, which is exactly what the dog is able to do to him. So the fun activity that you are going to do today is you are going to play a game using the dice to choose your characters, your setting, and the moral. And then I would like you to write your own folktale using the information that's been given to you. So remember, we're using our characters they are flat characters. you'll have one good character, one bad character. You'll have a beginning, a middle, and end. You have a setting that it's set in, and it's usually somewhere where it doesn't change, but you also don't know what time it is. And then, as you can see, I've tried to use some interesting vocabulary. I've used the word mortified. So there's some other words that I've used as well. I've used some conjunctions to connect my sentences and make them better. So I've really tried to make the story quite interesting. And of course, in the last paragraph, that is where you will be explaining the moral of the story to the readers. So have a bit of fun with it today. You can play the game more than once. Maybe you want to do 2 or 3 stories using different characters. So rolling the dice, write a short story using the characters, the setting, and the moral that you've been given, and then try another story as well. Don't forget to share it with us on Tapestry. I'd love to see what you've come up with.